Yeah, I've got it. Technology, it's a... Right, we're here today with Danny Posthill, the author of the book, The Non-Essential Worker. It's a brutally honest read about the realities that we've all been through in COVID lockdown of not being able to do the jobs that maybe we love or maybe we don't, but at least doing something productive. They would have particularly affected an entertainer, Danny, like yourself, who I've seen in various different things, including your performance on Britain's Got Talent, which was hilarious. And what was this book to you? Was it a form of something to do, or was it a form of therapy, or was it a catharsis?
It was a bit of everything, mate, if I'm honest with you. I didn't plan on writing it. I was, as I say in the book, I was having a Zoom meeting with my mate. We were having a few drinks. And he wrote a book called Rebooting Brexit, because he's an ex-politician. And he says, why don't you write a book, Dan? He says, because the thing is, he says, you've been out of work. He said, and I bet people would be interested to know how you actually dealt with it as a comedian, because you're someone who's just used to being on the road all the time. You're gigging constantly, you know? So, you know, it must have just, so he said, it must just be like a massive shock to the system, because when your body, your brain is used to function in a certain way. So when I'm out gigging all the time and I'm doing this, that, and the other, then when all of a sudden it's just stopped, you're like, whoa, what do I do? Do you know what I mean? What do I do now? But what I had to do immediately was think of the positives of how I'm going to earn some money. Straight away, that's where I thought. I didn't want to sort of get myself into a situation where I'm going to just sit there and be depressed. My first thought is, right, how can we turn this into a positive? And I think that's the best way to deal with a lot of things. But he says, well, why don't you write a book about everything that's gone on? And I thought, you know what? That's a really good idea, because not only did I want people to sort of know about how a comedian has dealt with lockdown, but, well, not just comedians, but other non-essential workers. I think when Boris called us all non-essential workers, and I think that was a massive insult to the hospitality industry, because what people don't realise as well is when it comes
he's
to
he's not giving us much good news today, Danny.
Well, no, I know we've got this coming up, haven't we? And I'm not looking forward to it, but hey ho, what do you do? The book's selling, do you know what I mean? So that's good. At least I've got a little bit of income coming in now.
Okay.
But yeah, you know, when we just called it, and I just thought, well, people would be interested to know, you know, how we've dealt with it. And not only that, people on the outside looking in could think, well, you know, how has he dealt with it as a comedian? But also, you know, I wanted to let people know how difficult it is to become a comedian in the first place. Like, you know, when the stories about me sleeping in a sauna in Spain, you know what I mean? And getting pulled over by the Guardia Civil for drunk, because I've made stupid decisions over the years. You know what I mean?
Were you sleeping in a sauna or something? Or sleeping in a...
Yeah, I was sleeping in a sauna. And so what happened was, I had nowhere to stay. I had no gigs left. I was out in Mallorca on my own. I didn't want to ring my mum and ask her for any money, because I was just, you know, I was like, listen, this is me. This is how I deal with it. And I'm going to try and overcome it myself. And I only ask for help if I really, really need it, you know? Yeah. So I've been kicked out of my apartment. I thought, what am I going to do? Well, I had this day job as an entertainer, doing activities around the pool and stuff. And I thought, well, I've got a key for the sauna. I can sleep there tonight. That'll keep us going. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, so I had there was this mascot they had called Sonny the Elephant, right? Because there was no pillows or anything. And I thought, well, I'll just put the elephant's head on, because it had a bit of a pillow. And because an elephant's got a massive mouth.
Why not, Dad? Why not, Dad?
Exactly. This is what alcohol does to people, mate, right? So I ended up putting this elephant's head on. It was like an open mouth, so I could breathe nicely through. Obviously, the sauna wasn't on. And I remember there was 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm asleep, and I was nice and comfy asleep. 6 o'clock in the morning, I just hear this almighty scream. I was like, whoa, what's this? And it was the cleaner. She must have thought someone was dead in the sauna with an elephant's head on, like some sort of crazy sex game.
Weird crime going on.
Yeah, some crazy sex game gone wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like,
oh dear. All right.
So, like, I just want people to know. Like, I mean, to be fair, I could have dealt with it I could have dealt with it, like, you know, in a better way. I could have rang my mum. She could have maybe given me some money for a hotel. But I thought, no, you learn more, you know, if you try and deal with things yourself. Because otherwise, if you just have to rely on people all the time, that's all you'll know. But when you deal with the worst situations and you get through it, the rest of it's just easy. You
become bulletproof. Well, good for you. So, Phil's told you a little bit, our mutual friend has told you a little bit about my background, which was as a former journalist and also working in a partnership with Addison Cresswell, who represented Mickey Flanagan and Michael McIntyre and
Off
Alan
the
Carr.
curb, yeah.
Okay, well, he sadly passed away at the age of 53, largely through too much excess, as far as we can see.
Well, I did hear. I did hear.
Which is very sad. But he represented Lee Evans as well, who then retired on the Jonathan Ross show. But put that to one side. I've had the good fortune to be around comedians and impressionists. The reason I keep looking down, Dan, is because I've got the questions on my phone. Always prepared, but it keeps jumping up and down. All right. So I've been around your game a little bit, and I've heard some great impressionists, including Alistair McGowan. But your impressions are a different league. I mean, they're uncannily like the original person. You could wield.
That means a lot. That does.
You could wield some power by just pretending to be someone on the phone. What's your process that you go through to get to the? Because I mean, they're very, very diverse as well. From Donald Trump, to Mickey Flanagan. Well, you couldn't get to more ends of the spectrum than that. So, what's your process to go through?
I think it's just a case of, you see, you've got the there's two different types of impressionists. There's the instinctive impressionist, which is what I am, where I just watch people. And then there's the, I'd say, more technical impressionists, people like Alistair McGowan, right, who will basically dissect the whole thing and they'll look into every little single detail. Whereas I suppose what I do, I suppose you could call it lazy in a way, because what I do is I just tend to pick it up from watching people a lot, you know. Like there's certain things certain phrases that you can pick up from people that everybody knows. You know, like when I do Donald Trump, he says fake news. Everybody knows that he says fake news. And, you know, everybody knows he goes on like he's the greatest. I'm the greatest at everything. Nobody knows how great they are until they see me. Do you know what I mean? You've got to do this.
It's very. So you've always had I'm combining a couple of questions here, if you don't mind, jumping around.
No worries.
So you've always had an instinct for people's voices. Is that from a young age?
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the first impressions I used to do was when I was a kid. I used to play FIFA. So one of my first impressions was John Motson, and I think everybody knew John Motti is their favourite commentator. You know, I think there was him and Barry Davis. But I used to do him all the time because me and my mates used to play on FIFA. So I think that's when I realised the instinct just came to me, and I just used to sort of do it all the time, you know. And I think that's another thing when you're doing voices. You've got to obviously watch people all the time, but then you've just got to sort of do them all the time. You've got to practice them. I remember I had to learn Donald Trump because he's not someone I would have went out on my way to watch originally. So when I've done it, I got asked to do a rap battle for Sky News. And so basically I just had to literally watch Donald Trump constantly. And my missus was on the road with me at the time because I'd lost my license. So she was driving me. And all as I was doing was watching Donald Trump, you know, and there I am doing the voice, fake news, fantastic, great, fantastic. Because there's certain words that you pick up on. And honestly, it got to the point where she was just like, if I hear Donald Trump's voice one more time, you know. So
this is the lovely Amy who you mentioned a lot in the book.
Yeah, that's my wife. Yeah,
I think she's been a beacon of strength for you, hasn't she, through this period?
Oh, she's been incredible, mate. You know, she's been me rock, and I just think this is where I'm lucky in that sense. And I think anyone who's in a relationship is lucky. Well, actually, saying that, there's been a lot of divorces in lockdown as well, haven't there? Do you know what I mean? So I don't really want to speak on behalf of most of the people. But I mean, I'm sort of lucky in the sense that we get on so well and she understands what I do because she's a dancer, you know? Right. And so I think when you've got someone who really understands what you do, but then I think, well, people who've been on their own in lockdown, it must be hard for them, you know. And I think that's why people buy pets and stuff like that. And that's the thing as well, when you look into things like self-service checkouts and all that, you know, I'm sort of not a huge fan of all that, because I just think about, you know, old people who go out.
And the banks closing down, where I've seen stuff on social media.
Yeah.
The subject I want to come back to, where somebody took his father to the bank, and his father, and he said, you know, that took a long time, Dad, to take you there. And his dad said, no, I met 7 of my friends. It was great.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly, because it's like, people, you get old people that go to the supermarket, they like to have a chat with the cashier and all that, you know. And I think that's what it's all. And then you think, well, no wonder there's an increase in mental health problems, because everything's just gone, you know. I mean, don't get me wrong, technology is a fantastic thing. I mean, God, if I'd have known about Zoom before a pandemic started, God, imagine if you put money into that, you'd be making a fortune now, wouldn't you? You know? Yeah. But I think things like this, so there is good things from it, but then when it comes to people's mental health, I just think it's just not good, because, you know, you've got these old people who are sat on their own, and all they want is company.
You know, one of the things that I've written down, because I had additional questions to ask you, apart from the ones that I'd sort of written down anyway, and it was how you were coping, and it's all about coping, really, because we've all got to cope. I mean, I'm okay on my own, but sociability, I've been to the pub recently, and it's very nice to see your old pals and have a chat, you know, but we're all suffering from the same thing. But mental health and social media is a topic here, because you are on social media far more probably than we are as the Sanguine Writing House, and you can manipulate it and move it and make it work for you as a comedian. But the fact that there's people out there trolling people and being horrible to people like Caroline Flack just staggers me. Absolutely.
Oh, it's incredible. It's incredible. Well, you know what, as well, when you do comedy, you'll know yourself, you're not going to please everybody. And if people don't like what I do, I'm not going to go out my way to try and get them on my side, because I just think, well, you know, I'm wasting my time, because there's so many more people out there who like what I do. So I just think, well, you know, I'll just put them to one side and I'll leave it at that. But when people have to go out of the way to troll someone, I mean, listen, there's comedians I don't particularly find funny. There's singers that I don't like their music, but I wouldn't go out my way to say, this is not very good, I don't like it. You know what I mean? Like what is the point? You know, all you're doing is
it can get more personal than that, Danny. It can be about the way you look or what you're wearing, and for a young girl, obviously, it's hugely important. But I just don't see where the malice comes from.
I don't. And you see, when Piers Morgan said that he wanted to, you know, everyone should be ID'd who goes on social media. And I think I absolutely agree with that, because if there's people going on there with fake accounts and trolling people, it's actually, if you think about it, mate, it could be borderline murder, if you think about it, because the amount of people who commit suicide because of things like this, you know.
Interesting, especially in this time of crisis, where the 2 words mental health are on everybody's lips, to actually go into that and then purposefully hurt someone seems extraordinary to me. But there we are. Listen.
Well, I was doing when I did an impression of Diane Abbott, you know, I was getting called a racist because, and I says, well, why am I a racist? They says, well, it's a white man impersonating a black woman. And I just says, well, so you're saying I can't impersonate people who have a different colour skin to me? They says, yeah. I says, well, you're the racist then, you know, because you're saying that I can't. Listen, we're a multicultural society, so I'm not allowed to include everybody, you know. But then some of the abuse I get off that, you know, someone says, is this right-wing comedy? And I just said, no, it's just comedy. I said, when you label stuff, it causes division. And these are the people who we're all about, you know, who sort of, you know, their original thing is be kind, you know, and what they're doing is they're doing completely the opposite. You know, like someone started calling me, this is, oh, good to see the boiled eggs back on the internet doing racist material. And I just retweeted hashtag be kind. You know, like people think that they're taking notice of what happened to Caroline Flack, and they're actually not, you know. But then they said to me, well, you're trolling Diane Abbott. Well, no, I'm not. I'm just doing an impression. She said something in the news.
You weren't rude about her, were you? It was just an impression.
It's just an impression. You know, if she said something or she's done something, like, for example, if Boris had done something or, you know, if Trump's done something, I'm going to make jokes of it because I'm a comedian. It's what I do, you know. But what people find difficult is finding the difference between malicious intent and a joke.
Yeah.
You know, like I was out with my mates yesterday, and you know, the stuff we were saying to each other was just ruthless, but we were just we know it's banter. You know what I mean?
That's what makes it like, isn't it?
Anyone hearing in what we were saying to each other at the pub yesterday will probably think, God, you must hate each other. Do you know what I mean? But
actually, the reverse is true.
And to me, it's a term of endearment. You know, if you're doing an impression of somebody, or if you're taking the mick out of somebody, having a laugh, because that's what it is. It's just we're just taking the mick, you know, and it's a term of endearment. But but then there's a line, isn't there? You know, I mean, it's when somebody doesn't know somebody else, and then they go up to them in the pub and say something like, "Whoa, hang on, mate! Like, I don't even know you." Do you know what I mean? If someone's in the public, someone's in the spotlight, you know, and they're a politician, you're a I mean, I suppose you've got. I'm tying myself in a knot with this a little bit here because
you're not really, Danny, because anybody seriously balanced like yourself, it would appear, knows where the line is.
Exactly. So when it comes to because what I was saying was like, you know, it's all right for me to, you know, do jokes about a celebrity when, you know, people, you don't know them and they don't know you. Yeah. You know what I mean? But then it's not all right to just go to some random in a pub. But I suppose the celebrity is out there to basically say, look, I'm out here anyway. You know what? So if I say something in the public eye, you've got to sort of be thick-skinned and expect it, you know?
I'm talking as much as you, which won't happen in the future, I promise you. But I was watching a piece that Jimmy Carr was doing on YouTube yesterday, and he said he insults everybody on a level. So it's not like he picks out a particular lot. He said, I'll just try to make jokes and make people happy, but honestly don't pick out any particular race, sex, whatever it might be. I just insult everyone. So
exactly.
It's like a blanket bombing.
Yeah, so, there's a level playing field then, isn't there? You know, like I done a gig before, and this woman come up to me. She says, "You offended me tonight." I says, "Oh, really?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I didn't initially come here to offend you." I said, "What's the problem?" She says, "You've done a joke about people who have a stutter." I says, "Right." I said, "Well, I've done jokes about everything." She said, "Apologise now." I says, "No." I says, "I will not apologise for a joke." I said, because I've got friends who've got stutters. I suppose this is like the old, I've got black friends, so I can be racist. You know what I mean? Like, but no, I genuinely, I've got friends who, you know, I've got a friend who's got a stutter, and I've told him actually, funnily enough, he was the stage manager in Panto, and it was really strange because when you were talking to him, he sort of, you know, he struggled when he was just, you know, in social situations, and he had his stutter then. But when he was stage manager, he was fine. He could do his job. It was really strange.
That's psychosomatic then, isn't it? So
it is.
It comes alive then. A bit like performance.
Yeah. Exactly.
So we were talking about you doing gigs and how this awful thing has interrupted you and interrupted your career development and the success that you were beginning to achieve on a bigger scale as possible. So where would be, of all the places that you've gigged, and I'd imagine they run into thousands now, where would be the best place in the world and in the UK? And how do the crowds differ?
Well, when it comes to, let me finish that story by the way, this woman I told you, so this was in Mallorca, funnily enough. No, sorry, it wasn't Mallorca, it was in Ibiza. She says, "You don't do jokes about people who got a stutter." I says, "Look, I've done jokes about everything tonight and I'm not going to apologise to you." Anyway, she was going on and on and on, and she says, I said, "Look, darling," I says, I'm having a drink. I said, "You're now invading my personal space." I said, "Why have you got such a problem about me doing a joke about someone who's got a stutter?" She said, "Because my son's got a stutter." I said, "Well, just as well he didn't complain, because we'd be here all night, wouldn't we?" Right? So, anyway, I'm sorry, right? If you're going to antagonise a comedian, that is what's going to happen. Right.
Oh, dear. Go on.
I told my mate Dennis this, you know, and he just laughed. He just said, "Look, you know," he said, do comedians do jokes about people who are bald?" I says, "Yeah." I heard Jack D say something like, you know, about how bald people look ridiculous, and I agree. You know, like it's one of them things, isn't it? You know,
that's a pretty weak joke, actually. But I mean, you know, Jack was part of Alison Cresswell's mob as well. But there you are. Anyway, listen, answer the question I asked you about.
Yeah, sorry. So go on. Yeah.
And the audiences and how they differ, whether they're different in London than they are in Hartlepool or.
But you know what
Liverpool.
I found? I just see an audience as an audience in the UK. Right. When it comes to, you go to Liverpool, you know, and I find that, I'm not saying they've got a chip on the shoulder, but I do find a lot of people from Liverpool do have a very well-developed sense of humour, because I don't know, whether it's a stereotype or what, I don't know.
Irish?
The Irish, well, you see, I've done a gig I've done Northern Ireland, but I've never done Southern Ireland. And Belfast I was at, they were fantastic. Right. They were well up for it. I find the Scots are very well up for it. Right. When I go to places like I think Liverpool, because, you know, generally a lot of people are funny. I mean, people in Glasgow are very funny themselves. So you've got to really, you know, make sure that you're going to hit home when you're there. And London, I think, is the only place to me that differs, because I just feel like they've developed this sort of culture, which is very much, I feel like you're walking on eggshells really when you're in London doing shows. I'm
disappointed in that, because that's where I come from, but we do get it in the neck quite a lot, actually.
Central London.
And I don't really know why it is.
No, well, I find Central London, I just feel like I'm walking on eggshells in case I upset someone when I'm in London. And listen, I you know, like I've said before, you should never apologise for a joke, but when you lose an audience, that's another matter. You know what I mean? Like, don't apologise for a joke, but then you've still got to gauge it right, you know? Right. So I think outskirts of London and places like that, great. But I feel like when you're doing the comedy clubs, don't get me wrong, they're great gigs if you get it right. But at the same time, I'm thinking, especially after this pandemic, because I feel like people have just been more focused on social media, you know, as opposed to, you know, before lockdown, because they had other things going on in their life. Whereas some people have just been so bored, they're just scrolling and they're seeing things on social media all the time. And this whole thing where people are encouraging people to be offended, I think now, you know, and I feel like in Central London,
which is a huge issue. Go on.
It is a huge issue.
Taking offence at anything.
Yeah.
Taking offence at just something that's so meaningless. You wonder how anybody can be bothered.
It's ridiculous. I mean, what did Ricky Gervais say? He said, look, I'm not going to apologise to anybody. He said, I'll just say what I want. He said, and whoever wants to get offended, he said, let them be offended. He said, they're just offended. He said, what can they do? You know, he said, but then eventually they'll just be like, well, actually, he doesn't care. So what's the point in keep having a go at him when he's just going to say it anyway? You know?
I think also he said that there's a difference between facts and feelings. Feelings are an emotion that you have that maybe you should grow out of or become toughened to. Facts are facts. The sky is blue. You can't deny that, you know.
No, exactly.
You can have a feeling about whether you like the colour, you know. But
yeah. Oh no, that's it as well. You know, when you like, people are trying to argue with science these days as well, and I'm like,
absolutely.
You know, don't start telling me just because it's natural. You know, just because you're offended by, like, I've got a friend, right, my best mate, Mickey Harrison. He's like a massive Man United fan, right? Oh. And he says, like, I get offended when Man United lose. Do you know what I mean? Or I get offended if, but he said, but I'm not going to go out and tell everyone and start going, this is wrong, and start doing bloody marches just because they've got beat and because he's offended. He said, but that's his own personal, that's his feelings about it. You know what I mean? Absolutely. It doesn't mean that he's right, you know.
Absolutely. That's interesting. So, have anybody that you've impersonated ever called you out and said, apart from the lady with the stuttering son, which, right, which is a bit different, but any celebrity that you impersonated, have they ever said you've gone too far now?
Diane Abbott blocked me on Twitter.
Oh, right.
So Diane Abbott blocked me on Twitter. Now, I talked about that in the book. Martin Lewis
money expert,
retweeted my impression, and he said, I've got to say, Danny, I'm a bit lower and less camp, and I'm a lot more butch, but nice try. That's what he said when he retweeted the thing.
Okay.
And I was like, more butch and less camp. Come on, mate. You know what I mean?
Very good.
And he, so Martin Lewis has said to me, Judge Rinder loves it when I do him. Every time I do an impression of Judge Rinder, he loves it because he's got these little traits that, you know, when I speak, do you understand? Do you know what I mean? So them little things that he does, you know, like interrupt and it comes across as so rude, but he is actually, right, when you watch him on telly as the judge, he's obviously ruthless because it's his job, but he's actually such a lovely man, you know?
Okay.
And this is where people sort of find it, and it's interesting as well. I mean, I'm not going to speak bad about certain celebrities, but when I was on Britain's Got Talent, there are certain people on there who come across lovely on TV, but backstage they are so vile and rude, and I'm just like, do you know what? I just can't stand pretense. No, Cowell's actually all right.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, he would like to hear that because he's got a reputation as being sort of quite ruthless himself, hasn't he, with acts and things like that?
He's ruthless. When it comes to business, right, he'd sell his granny, you know? Right. But when it comes to just, I mean, I know someone who was really good friends with him, Russ Kane, he's called. He's got a Men's Health Radio he's on in London. And he said he's been on holiday with Simon Cowell. He said, loveliest man ever. He said, but if it came to business and I was in business with him, he said, he would screw me over, like, you know what I mean? He says, but he's a nice guy. He said he's a lovely guy to talk to.
That's very interesting. Can you tell us who the people at Britain's Got Talent, who are the people that you wouldn't necessarily go out for a drink with?
Well, I'd have a drink with Amanda Holden, definitely. She was lovely.
Well, she took it. I saw the Britain's Got Talent piece, and she could take the joke, couldn't she, with its roots to point. She didn't get upset or anything. So
no, she didn't. No, she's great. Alicia Dixon, if she asked me to go for a drink, I'd probably say no. But whether she probably wouldn't anyway. Do you know what I mean? I mean, David Walliams, he was all right. You know what I mean? Well, listen, to me, David Walliams is comedy genius, and I thought the sketches he was doing in Little Britain was just so good. You know, I just thought they were so clever. And you see, when they were saying, oh, we need to cancel this now because it was racist, looking back, when he was doing the routine about the grandma being sick and stuff like that, what people don't get is the fact that they were taking the mick out of racist people. Yeah. They weren't being racist themselves.
Absolutely, I agree.
And I just think, why are you cancelling? You know, I mean, don't get me wrong, right? So when Keith Lemon was doing Trisha Goddard, right, that was racist because he wasn't doing an impression of her, and he was putting on a West Indian accent, and that's not how she sounds. You know,
did he do the same with Craig David?
When he done the Craig David thing, I think that was actually funny because that was just a caricature of him, wasn't it? It wasn't. Right. He wasn't putting a Jamaican accent on or anything like that when he was doing Craig David, you know. Yeah. But then if you're going to impersonate Usain Bolt, he's Jamaican. Yeah, do a Jamaican accent. That's fine because you're just doing an impression then. You know what I mean? But when he was doing the the Trisha Goddard, I mean, that was it was a bit far, you know.
We're going to talk a bit about your BGT experience, but I would probably think that someone, I mean, I want to be careful what we say, but there are some celebrities, certainly from when I was working, who would just turn up and do their job and then go, and had no interest really in communicating or socializing or being human, basically, towards people who were performing in the show. They just came up, did their hour or hour and a half or 2 hours, and then left. And that can sometimes leave a bad impression, whereas people smile at you and shake your hand and make you feel welcome and that sort of thing. That makes a big impression as well. So maybe that's the case. So how many voices do you have in your repertoire, Danny, at any given time?
Oh, do you know what? I couldn't tell you. I mean, if you could, I would probably say about 50. But then people say to me, like, people, people are like, oh, you didn't do Dominic Littlewood tonight. I used to always do Dominic Littlewood, you know. They want me to track down British cowboy builders who rob people for thousands and thousands of pounds. It's the face with Dominic. That's what I love about him. And because I'm bald as well, do you know what I mean? That helps. I mean, I used to love Dominic Littlewood because, you know, he would literally chase somebody. Excuse me, Mrs. Smith, excuse me. Do you realise you've actually ripped off Mr. Johnson? You've ripped off Mr. And he has a list of people. You've got 7 county court judgments against your name. Do you know what you're doing to these people, mate? See that man there? See that man? He's a thief. That is that. I'm like, and that's all you're going to do? Just tell them off? Do you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to at least give them a dead arm or something, mate. You know what I
mean? Very funny, very funny. So, like, who are you working on now as voices? Who within this? Because obviously you've got Boris down to a fine art, and you've got Trump down to a fine art. Joe Biden probably doesn't give you anything, does he, in terms of voice?
Joe Biden's quite difficult to do. What I find with Joe Biden is he looks like your grandma trying to watch the telly when she can't find her glasses. You know what I mean? Hey, come on, man, what's going on? Hey, everybody knows I've got reliable sauces. My favorite's got to be ketchup. You know?
Very good.
But that's like sort of when you do Biden, I think you've got to get into it. Because people, when I've done Biden in the past, because he is a difficult one to grasp to get.
Well, I can imagine because he's quite vanilla, isn't he?
He's sort of like, when I do Biden, people say, it sounds like he's got a little bit of George Bush in him as well, you know, which I think is
What does that mean? What does that mean?
So he's got the little bits of the way he says his R's are the same as maybe how George Bush would say his R's. And I mean, John Culshaw used to do the best George Bush, I thought, you know, and he used to do he used to do the little laugh, you know, when he done George Bush. But yeah, I just find that with Biden, and he's funny because obviously there's the forgetful moments, and he gets his words wrong and stuff like that, you know. So that's the sort of stuff you could go down with Biden. But he's just got nowhere near as much character as Trump, you know. And this is the thing when you're doing impressions of people, you've got to pick people who have. I mean, someone asked me to do Piers Morgan, right? Now, what I managed to do is I managed to find an angle on him, you know, because what I find, I can't do his normal voice, but I can do when he's on a rant. You know, what if I'm a Piers? You know, if I'm a Piers, hang on, does this thing, doesn't it? Hang on, with due respect, you know, one time I get the end of my sentence, I feel like I need an oxygen mask, I get breath, you know. See, so there's that bit I can get with Piers Morgan, but he is still difficult. There's you know, it's hard to grasp onto something to do people, you know, like him. I mean, I was talking, Rory Bremner was doing David Cameron, and I didn't think David Cameron really had anything that was
well, he was another vanilla one, wasn't he, really? I mean, there aren't those particular points that you can pick out, whereas your Boris is just brilliant. But then I saw you when you did the book launch, which sadly I couldn't attend, and you said Boris has been a gift, really.
Oh, Boris, absolutely. You know, he's just sort of, I mean, do you know what I thought was quite cruel? There was a pandemic where you've got Boris Johnson as our prime minister, and you've got Donald Trump as he was obviously the president of America at the time, and they didn't let me go out and do gigs on stage. I'm just going, that's just cruel. Do you know what I mean? Like with the personalities that they were.
Cruel and unusual punishment, because I mean you would have absolutely cleaned up with them, wouldn't you?
Oh, but the thing is as well, during the pandemic, and this is what I've taken as a positive, is I've managed to get more voices under my belt. Like I didn't know who Rishi Sunak was, but then obviously he's on the telly. What I found with Rishi Sunak as well, what I like about Rishi Sunak is he does this thing where he looks like he is constantly going fishing. I will give you some money until you get your tax bill, then you will crap yourself, you know. But yeah, Rishi Sunak, bounce back loans. You can get a bounce back loan. It's fantastic. And you will pay it all back by the time you're 96. You know, it says so there's all these sort of things going on with him.
Very good. Any others that you can think of that have emerged out of pandemic?
So
Well, I was watching Jordan Peterson quite a lot as well. I like Jordan. He's somebody who, you know, he does this thing where he sort of sounds a little bit like Kermit the Frog, but he's got this really intelligent. He's a very intelligent man, and he looks down quite a lot. He looks down, and you can see the trail of thought when he's thinking of the next thing to say. You know,
so he was someone who I sort of was working on, and obviously Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro is somebody who is just speaks so fast to the point where you're like,
who? Sorry,
Ben Shapiro. Have you seen Ben Shapiro? Do you not know who he is?
I don't know. I'm not too sure. This is your study of American politics, presumably, that you know.
I suppose it is,
you actually know what people do. I guess you've got Sky Sports then, Sky News, right? So you can see what all these people are getting up to.
Can I tell you something, mate? Right, I actually watch more on YouTube than I watch telly now. It's very rare I watch telly because I'm obviously when I'm seeing people like Ben Shapiro. These are obviously they've got their channels over in, but a lot of these people, because I mean, with Ben Shapiro, people could say he's got a controversial opinion. What I mean by that is his opinion opposes the establishment, you know. Right. So he's basically he had his own YouTube channel, and then he's sort of got his own channel going on now, and he's got Candice Owens working for him and all that stuff. And Jordan Peterson, obviously, he's a professor, he's an author, and he's just someone I love listening to because I just think he's such an intelligent man, you know, right. And you listen to what he talks about and you're just like, wow, he goes in depth. He goes the ins and outs of everything, you know, and he's so in depth of what he says. So that's probably why, I like impersonating people.
But do you watch a lot of CNN at all? Mostly YouTube, you say, but CNN, does that figure?
Well, I do not watch CNN because it's fake news, Trump doesn't.
Any opportunity.
Any opportunity, I know.
Yeah, but it is a real shame, like you say, you've not had that opportunity to do it during this time. Now, tell me, when was your performance on Britain's Got Talent?
2015.
Okay, which was probably going to be you were at a level and was going to be the start of something else, wasn't it? So you were really just beginning to cook on fire, and then this thing comes along.
I know
because. You had actually held, from what I saw, Simon Cowell and David Williams and Alicia Dixon and Amanda, and it was going to take you places, wasn't it? And then this crap happens.
I'm going to spill the beans on Britain's Got Talent here. I was having a chat with Francine Lewis because me and Francine have been doing some stuff together, a couple of sketches. She's fantastic impressionist,
Right.
And basically what we both agreed on, and I don't think Francine will mind me saying this, is they don't do anything with people once the show's finished. It's like, right, we wanted you for the show, that's it, boom, see ya. They don't try and get you. I mean, to be fair, when I read the contract, I was like, I'm not signing this. Right. I had to get a lawyer, because they were like, oh, well, our lawyers will look through it. And I'm like, no. That's all in your court then. Do you know what I mean? So I got and I got my lawyer to look at it. And, well, I couldn't really afford a lawyer at the time. Thank God it was a friend of a friend whose wife was a lawyer. And she looked at it for me for a bottle of Baileys. And I was like, well, you can't get a better deal than that, can you?
That sounds like a lovely girl.
Yeah. So she done that. And she was like, right, this means this. This means I can't go into too much technique because I can't really say anything about it. But, and I said to the people on the show, right, I'll do the show on these terms. This, and this. Cut these out and I'll do the show. And they come back and they went, yeah, okay. But when I said that to them, I knew I wasn't going to win. Because when they got someone who's won, it's all their product then, it's all their brand. Right. And because I didn't want to take the risk in, how can I put this? Having my shirt ripped off my back, if anything did go wrong,
yeah,
I sort of was making sure that my back was covered and I still got the TV exposure that I wanted in order to further myself.
Can I ask you a question, Danny? Did you go into the show believing it would give a boost, it would set fire to your career?
I did, but I also went into the show feeling a bit, I was very cagey when I went in there. I had to keep my wits about me because I've seen so many brilliant acts on there get screwed over. Like Steve Best was on there and he's a fantastic comedian. He's been on the circuit for years, And he, he didn't come across well on it. But sometimes you're thinking, am I getting set up here? And I just said to them, look, I says, if my first audition doesn't go well, I says, you know, please don't show it because this is my living, you know. And they were like, oh, no.
One of two ways, yeah. Go on, sorry.
I didn't trust them either, really. I just didn't have this element of trust because I just feel like they don't care about the contestants, really. You know, they don't get, all they're bothered about is the brand Britain's Got Talent.
Or making the show.
And I can sort of see why, because listen, it's a massive business, and that's the reason they do it. You know what I mean? Because it's successful. Yeah. But yeah, there was just things like, so when I'd done my first audition, they rang me and they says, oh, can you do it in Manchester? And I says, yeah, great, 2 hours from me, lovely. Then they rang us and they says, can you do it in Scotland now? And I says, well, to be honest, Scotland I'm going to be in London the night before. Manchester would be better because it's closer. Right. And they says, oh, no. They said, look, we'll pay for your flights. We'll book a hotel for you. So they booked the hotel and everything when I'd done my first audition, you know. So I sort of half knew I was going to go through. So I was like, I feel like they're on my side here, you know. Okay. But then I was talking to, when we done the reveal where you found out whether you're through, I was talking to this duo and they got through. They got 4 yeses. They had their flights and everything paid for them, and they were from Belgium, and they didn't get past to the semi-final. So, but then I thought, well, it's the old putting it through your tax thing, isn't it? You know what I mean? Putting the expenses through. So I could see why, you know, they would do that anyway. So then I was thinking, oh well, it mustn't be the case. They just do it for people who they want on the show. It's basically throwing crap at a wall and seeing what sticks, isn't it? Yeah. It's that old chestnut. So there was that, and then I mean I got through. When I got the semi-final, I was going back and forth with what material I was going to do, and it worked really well. I could see they wanted me to get in the final as well. I could just have an inkling. The judges, before I'd done my spot, they were going, good luck, Dan, and I was thinking, I can sort of see they want me through to the final. When I got to the final, before I'd done my spot, I went like that to the judges and they were just like that looking away. And I was going, what's going on here? Do you know what I mean? So I sort of could see, and listen, my final went really well as well, but they didn't give me a standing ovation. They just clapped. I think what they do is they give signals. I think they know who they want to win. Okay. You know? I said, going back to the contract, I knew I wasn't going to win anyway because I'd done it on my terms. You know? Okay.
Do you ever get nervous, Danny, performing?
Terrible. Now, here's another thing, right? Talking about when I mentioned in my book about when you drink alcohol in lockdown, and to be fair, alcohol consumption has risen massively during the pandemic, you know? So like I was saying in the book, like I'll have a drink. With me. But when it's in the pandemic, I was like, right, so I'll have a drink on a Saturday night. That's my drinking night. Then it was getting to Friday, and I was like, oh, I'll have a drink on Friday as well. Then it was getting to Thursday. Then it was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I was like, whoa, I need to reel this in here. And going back to nerves, I used to drink before going on stage because I thought it relaxed me, when in actual fact it doesn't. It slows your brain. It makes you less, you know, you're not as quick when you haven't had a drink. When you've had a drink, you know. So, but I just had this false sense of security, as they call it, Dutch courage, you know. Yeah. And I think that, I mean, so now it's took me quite a while to get over it though. Ever since I've done comedy, I'd have a couple of glasses of wine before I went on stage. Now, if I do have a drink before I go on, it's just because I fancy one. It's not because I have to. I don't use it as medicine. You know, I can just go on and I can, you know, just chat to an audience because, you know, it is what it is now. And I think what it was, when I started doing the comedy clubs and stuff, I was an open spot, and then I was moving to headliner quite quickly. Yeah. So it was the pressure. I was thinking, oh, how do I deal with this? So I was just drinking before I went on. And I think that's what that's how it started. And I can see why all these big. I mean, Tommy Cooper was a prime example, because I was talking to a comedian. What's his name? Fantastic comedian, Sol Bernstein.
He make it part of his act that he was always drunk. You know.
Honestly, yeah. Well, I mean, it was. He says to me, He says, I never drink before going on stage. I said, why? He said, because look what happened to Tommy Cooper. I mean, I've heard stories about Tommy Cooper would have a bottle of vodka before he went on, and he'd be fine. But he's a big bloke as well, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it just gets, if you fall into that trap, it's very dangerous.
Yeah.
Very dangerous.
Well, you made the point of that in your book, which is a very salutary lesson, actually, for everybody to read, because we've all been affected in our different ways through the pandemic. But you've got a section in there, episode 12, I think it is, which is mental health. And it deals with how your relationship with alcohol has been affected by the pandemic and how you've managed to keep it under control. Because if we drank everything that we need to drink, we'd all be dead.
Oh, mate. You know, like, so I've got it under control, but then there's times where, listen, you know yourself, yesterday the England match was on.
Yeah.
I was out from 12 o'clock. I got in at 8. You know, it's a long old stint, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You sat there with your mate, pint after pint after. Because I think what it is,
it's a full shift.
Yeah, it's and you know what? You see, this is where I sort of have, in a way, I mean, I tell you what, it makes me realise I'm not an alcoholic because it's hard graft. You know what I mean? It's difficult to, you know, I mean, if, you know, anyone who can get up and drink, you know, and keep it going. I mean, listen, I know people who've been to rehab during the pandemic. I can't mention the names.
But as I say, the particular section you deal with that in your book is brutally honest and very real and very well written, and actually would make sense to anybody who's been teetering on or is going through that experience. Because if you don't get hold of it, you're going to be in serious trouble.
Of course you are. And this is what people don't realise. And also, it's all right me now, I'm 34 and I'm fit and healthy and I can go to the gym and stuff like that. But what people don't realise is long term, and I've sort of seen effects people have had. Yeah. Listen, you know, we all like to have a drink. We all like to eat unhealthy food, you know, but listen, there's times I go off the rail. I mean, I'm back on doing a diet now.
Right.
Trying to look, so I put weight back on again. And the jokes my mates were saying to me yesterday, calling me fat and this, that, and the other. It was just like, you know, but then I had to turn to them. It got to the point where I just had to use self-deprecation. Do you know what I mean? I was on the phone to my missus. I said to her, I said, the lads are torturing me today. I said, it's got to the point where I've had to self-deprecate. She went, what, you pooed yourself? I went, no. I said, self-deprecate. Not self-deprecate.
They've probably been saving it all up, writing notes between them, going, let's compare these. Because they've not been allowed out for so long. It's all pent up.
I know. So, yeah. And I just had to say, you know, like, what did my mate say yesterday? He said, I'll be going home at 5 o'clock. I said, the chances of you going home at 5 o'clock is the same chances of me having a salad. You know what I mean? So I just had to take the mick out of myself.
Well, listen, you look very well to me. We're going to wind this up now. This book is out now. Where's it available to get, Danny?
So you can get it on Amazon. You can get it on you can get it from the publisher's website, which is Steel City Press.
Okay.
So you can go on their website, or you can go on my social media platforms, which are Twitter. I'm on Twitter at Posthill Danny. I'm on Instagram, Danny_Posthill. I'm on Facebook, Danny Posthill Comedian. I'm on TikTok now. I never thought I would ever get on TikTok because I'm a grown up. Do you know what I mean? Because all the kids and that are on TikTok.
Great.
Yeah, so I'm on TikTok as well now. So I've joined that. So I'm on that. So people, you know, you can message me on any of my social media platforms.
You can find it. Listen, it's a great read. I really enjoyed it. Okay.
Oh, thanks, mate.
It's been great to meet you. I think we've got to bring it to a conclusion now because the Scots match is about to start. All right?
Oh yeah. Well, there we go. We've got to get our priorities right, haven't we?
Kick off in 7 minutes. All right. So
brilliant. Nice
if you want to stay on the line and have a chat, by the way, if you want to stop recording and stay on the line and have a chat. Do you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
No worries. Thanks a lot, mate. Cheers.
Okay, cheers.